narrative.
It was a regular evening, or at least I thought it was. We were sitting in the living room, the glow of the TV flickering across the walls. She had been quiet that day more than usual, but I assumed she was just tired. I had no reason to think that within the next few minutes, she was about to turn our marriage into something unrecognizable. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice steady, calculated. I turned to look at her, expecting something along the lines of a vacation plan or maybe a change in her work schedule. Instead, she hit me with something I never saw coming. "I think we'd be better off without intimacy." At first, I thought she was joking. Maybe this was some kind of odd setup for a discussion about reconnecting in a different way. But her face was unreadable, calm in a way that made my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" I asked, already feeling the unease creeping in. "I just think we don't need it. We've been together long enough. Our relationship should be deeper than physical stuff," she explained, as if it were the most rational thing in the world. I tried to process it, searching for some kind of hidden meaning behind her words. This was the same woman who used to crave my touch, who once pulled me into spontaneous kisses in the kitchen, who used to whisper how much she loved the feeling of being close to me. Now she was saying we should just stop. "Wait, so you're saying no more at all?" I clarified, hoping I had misunderstood. "Yes, I think it would be healthier for us." Healthier. That word echoed in my mind like an insult. Since when was intimacy unhealthy? Since when did being close, in the way only a husband and wife should be, become something we needed to eliminate? I leaned back, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Is something wrong? Did I do something? Are you not attracted to me anymore?" She shook her head. "It's not about that. I love you. I just feel like our relationship should be about companionship, not physical needs." I sat there stunned. This wasn't something couples just decided overnight. A marriage wasn't a roommate agreement. It was built on love, trust, and yes, intimacy. Was she really willing to throw away that part of us so easily? "Have you been feeling this way for a long time?" I asked, suddenly realizing that if she was bringing it up now, she had probably been thinking about it for weeks, maybe even months. "I've been considering it for a while, yes," she admitted. "I've realized that I don't need that part of a relationship anymore." The weight of her words settled in. She had already decided. This wasn't a conversation, it was a statement. A declaration that the marriage I thought we had was no longer what she wanted. I should have fought harder in that moment. I should have said that marriage is about compromise, that removing something so fundamental wasn't just her decision to make. But instead, I nodded slowly, feeling like the ground beneath me was starting to crack. "Okay," I murmured, still trying to grasp the reality of it. She smiled then, as if relieved that I wasn't arguing. Maybe she thought I would be fine with this. Maybe she believed that, given enough time, I would see things her way. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something between us had just broken, and I had no idea how to fix it. I wanted to believe that things wouldn't change, that somehow, despite what she had said, we could still feel connected, still feel like a real couple. But as the days turned into weeks, the distance between us became something I couldn't ignore. At first, I tried to be understanding. I told myself that if this was what she needed, I could adjust. Maybe intimacy wasn't everything. Maybe I had put too much weight on it. But it didn't take long for me to realize that it wasn't just about the physical aspect. Everything else started to fade too. She stopped touching me, not just in the way she had explicitly mentioned, but in every other small way that once made us feel close. No more absent-minded hand on my arm when she walked by. No more leaning into me while we watched a movie. No more casual fingers running through my hair as she used to do when she sat beside me. It was as if she had removed every form of affection along with intimacy itself. I remember one night in particular, sitting beside her on the couch, the silence between us heavier than it had ever been. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching. I glanced over at her, trying to find something, anything, that would remind me of what we used to be. "You okay?" I finally asked. She nodded without looking up from her phone. "Yeah, just tired." tired. That had become her answer for everything. I tried to ignore the tightness in my chest, but it was getting harder. I had read about marriages where passion faded over time, but this wasn't just a slow decline. It was a complete shut-off, like a door had been slammed and locked without warning. And the worst part? She seemed completely fine with it. The change wasn't just in how we interacted at home. When we went out, she acted the same way. She walked beside me, not with me. She spoke to me, but never in the way she used to. Her words were functional. Discussions about schedules, reminders about errands, the kind of things you'd say to a coworker or a housemate. I tried to compensate for the growing emptiness by doing little things. I planned a date night, something simple, a nice dinner, just the two of us, a chance to reconnect. She agreed to go, but the entire night felt forced. I reached for her hand across the table, and she let me hold it. But there was no warmth, no squeeze in return. It felt like holding the hand of someone who was merely tolerating it. That was the night I truly understood what was happening. It wasn't just that she had removed intimacy from our marriage. She had removed us. She went to bed earlier than usual that night, leaving me alone in the living room. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling like a guest in my own marriage. I stopped trying after that night, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that whatever had shifted between us wasn't something I could fix on my own. I gave her space, let her dictate how things would be, and watched as our marriage settled into something I barely recognized. A quiet, transactional existence where we shared a home, but nothing else. And then she started changing. At first it was subtle, a little more effort in her appearance. Nothing drastic, just small things that I noticed because I knew her. She started wearing perfume again, the same one she used to put on before our date nights. She bought new clothes, ones that she never seemed interested in wearing around me. Then came the late nights. She started going out more, always with the same vague explanation. Just grabbing a drink with some friends from work. I never questioned it at first. I told myself that she was just looking for something to fill the space that had grown between us. But the more it happened, the more something gnawed at me. She would come home lighter, almost happy. I hadn't seen that kind of energy from her in months. Not in our conversations, not in our quiet dinners, not in any part of the life we still pretended to share. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at her phone while she was in the shower. I knew her password. She had never bothered to change it, and I wasn't looking for anything specific. Maybe just a reassurance that my gut was wrong. I found the messages almost immediately. There was no dramatic confession, no explicit proof of anything physical. Just an ongoing conversation that had no business existing between a married woman and another man. Inside jokes, late-night check-ins, compliments disguised as casual remarks, and one message that made my chest tighten. I wish I didn't have to go home yet. I locked her phone and set it back where I found it. My hands were steady, my mind surprisingly clear. There was no more guessing, no more wondering if I was overthinking things. She hadn't just removed intimacy from our marriage. She had taken it somewhere else. That night, I didn't say a word. I climbed into bed beside her, just like I had every other night before. She was already asleep, or at least pretending to be. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her even breathing, feeling the weight of everything settle in my chest. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just done pretending. The morning after I found those messages, something shifted inside me. I didn't explode. I didn't confront her. I didn't even feel the urge to yell or demand answers. Instead, I went completely quiet. Not the kind of quiet that begs for attention or sulks in hopes of a reaction. No, this was the quiet of someone who had finally stopped trying. I woke up, got dressed, and left the house without a word. No good morning, no asking if she had plans for the day. Just an empty, mechanical routine, as if I were living with a stranger. And in many ways, I was. She must have noticed. A part of me wonders if she expected some kind of outburst. If she had already come up with justifications in her head, excuses she could throw at me if I dared to ask who he was or why she had been confiding in him instead of her husband. But I didn't ask. I just let her feel the weight of the silence I had been drowning in for months. I started focusing on myself. Not in a petty way, not to prove a point, just because I was tired of being the only one trying. I went to the gym more, picked up hobbies I had let go of over the years, started making plans without checking in with her first. She noticed. She would ask where I was going, and I would give her the same vague answers she used to give me. Just grabbing a drink, meeting some people. I didn't owe her details. She had made sure of that when she decided to shut me out. And that's when I realized something. She wasn't upset that I was distant. She was upset that she was no longer in control of it. For months, she had dictated the terms of our relationship. She had set the rules, deciding what parts of marriage we were allowed to keep and which ones we had to discard. And I had gone along with it, hoping things would get better, that she would come back to me. But now I was the one pulling away. One evening, as I was getting ready to head out, she finally said it. "You've been different lately." I paused at the door, wallet in hand, and looked at her. Really looked at her. "So have you." Her expression faltered just slightly, but she recovered fast. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shrugged. "It means I'm just following your lead." She didn't like that answer, but she didn't argue either. Maybe because she knew she had no right to. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a slow, drawn-out ending that neither of us had the courage to say out loud. I could tell she was getting nervous. The more I pulled away, the more she started paying attention in ways she hadn't for months. She watched me closer, asked more questions, tried to insert herself into my plans like she was suddenly remembering that I existed outside the version of me she had shaped to fit her needs. But it was too late for that. One night I came home late, not because I was doing anything secretive or vindictive. I just didn't feel the need to rush back to a place that no longer felt like home. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch, waiting. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. The moment I closed the door behind me, she muted the sound. "Where were you?" she asked, her tone more demanding than curious. I set my keys on the counter. "Out? With who?" I turned to look at her, meeting her gaze for the first time in what felt like weeks. "Why do you care?" She blinked, clearly thrown off by my response. She had expected me to offer explanations, to justify myself the way I always had. But that version of me was gone. "I just want to know what's going on with you," she said, her voice softer now, like she was trying to play the concerned wife. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "No, you don't." "Of course I do." "No, you don't," I cut her off. "You cared when I was begging for your attention, when I was the one chasing you, trying to hold this thing together while you pretended like it didn't matter. Now that I've stopped, now that I'm giving you exactly what you wanted, now you care?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see it in her face. She hadn't been prepared for this conversation. She had expected a fight, maybe even guilt-tripping. What she didn't expect was for me to stand there completely unbothered by the idea of losing her. I sighed, running a hand over my face. I was tired. Tired of the mind games, the silence, the endless waiting for her to choose me again. "I know about him," I said finally. Her breath caught. That was all the confirmation I needed. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was weaker now. "Don't insult me," I said, my tone calm but firm. "I've seen the messages. I know where you've been when you tell me you're out with friends. And honestly, I don't even care anymore." She paled. "It's not what you think." I laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "That's the part you don't get. I don't think anything anymore." "I know." She sat there, silent. She had spent months convincing herself that she had control over this situation, that I would never walk away. But she had mistaken my patience for weakness. "I'm done," I said simply. "If you don't want a marriage, fine. But I'm not going to be the only one sacrificing while you get to live two lives." For the first time in months, I saw something crack in her. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was just the realization that she had pushed too far. But it didn't matter because I had already made up my mind. She didn't speak right away. She sat there, stunned, as if she hadn't considered that I might actually walk away. Maybe she thought I would fight for her, beg her to reconsider, try to convince her that we could fix things. But I had spent months doing that, months trying to be enough for someone who had already made up her mind that I wasn't. Now I was done. When she finally did speak, her voice was quieter. "So that's it?" I tilted my head, looking at her in disbelief. "That's it?" I repeated. "You ended this long before I did. You made the decision to shut me out, to act like I was just an afterthought. You don't get to act surprised now." She shook her head, her eyes darting away like she was trying to come up with something to say, but I wasn't interested in whatever excuses were forming in her mind. "I thought we could be happy this way," she murmured. I exhaled, shaking my head. "No, you thought you could be happy this way. You thought I would just accept it, that I wouldn't need the things you decided to throw away. That's not how this works. Marriage isn't just one person dictating the terms while the other suffers in silence." Her jaw tightened, her posture stiffening. "I never meant to hurt you." That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. You didn't care if you did? That's what it came down to. It wasn't about her having some grand plan to hurt me. It was that she had stopped caring whether or not she did. That was worse. I turned away, heading toward the bedroom. I didn't want to hear more justifications. I didn't want to see whatever expression she was trying to arrange on her face to make herself look like the victim in this. I was done talking, done trying. The next few days were quiet. She didn't try to fix things, didn't make any effort to pull me back in. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to save. Or maybe deep down she had wanted this outcome all along, had wanted me to be the one to walk away so she wouldn't have to feel guilty about doing it herself. I packed my things. There wasn't a dramatic fight or some tearful goodbye, just quiet acceptance. And when I finally closed the door behind me for the last time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. She had wanted a life without intimacy, without connection, without the responsibilities of a real marriage. Now she had exactly what she asked for. She just didn't realize that without meant without me. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.